Okay, so last lesson you learned how to write an equation when they gave you the slope and a point. This lesson, they're just going to tell you 2 points. So let's look at example 1. Put this in your journals. They give you -6, 6, and then -3, 4. Anthony, I would leave a few pages in your journal so you can go back and get the first 2 lessons of chapter 3. So you get all your points. So when you have these 2 points, you need to find the slope first. Then we can do what we did last week, where we plug in the slope and one of the points to solve for the y-intercept. All right, so slope, does anybody remember what slope equals? It's 2 words. Rise over run. Okay, so when they give you 2 points, you can graph them. And calculate what the slope is. So if I graph -6, 6, I'm going to go down 6 and to the right 6. So there's my first point. My next point is -3, 4. So down 3 and then over 4. So now you have your equation. I'm going to see if I can draw this line better. Okay. So we've graphed it. So now you can tell me what the slope is, right? So I go from one point and I take the leftmost point and I count. Am I going up or down?
No, down.
Down. I went down how many?
2.
Something's wonky here. Oh, I screwed up on my graphing. Let me graph again. Can you tell I'm tired?
Yes.
My husband's sick. All right. X is -6. I graphed the slope. I didn't graph the point. So back 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. My fault. So back 3, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I graphed those as if they were slopes, not points. Yeah, it still goes down.
It's 6 over 3, just -2 over 3.
Yeah, because I go down 2
And to the right 3.
and to the right 3. So my slope is -2/3. So now we also need to find the y-intercept. If you happen to graph really nicely, you can look at the graph and tell me that the y-intercept equals what?
2.
2. But sometimes it's very difficult to look at. I have a terrible time drawing straight lines, so I don't trust graphing. So the other way to solve for the y-intercept, we know our slope is -2 over 3. And they gave you -6, 6 and -3, 4 for your points. So we can use our equation and plug in. So this goes where the m is. And then we pick an x and a y. So the y goes here and the x goes there. So you can plug all that in and solve for b. I really want you to make sure you know how to do this because you won't have to graph if you can do this. And graphing takes forever. So I can say 6 equals -2/3 times a -6 plus b. Now I just solve. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I do 6 times 2 is 12 divided by 3 is 4. So now I just subtract 4 to move it. And I get b equals 2. So you're going to get the same answer either way. But the solving it mathematically is more of a sure answer than just graphing it. All right, so let's do the next. This is example 1. That was A. This is example 1B. So again, they give you 2 points, -2, -4, and 1, -1. So you can graph it so that we can find the slope. So negative, this is x, this is y. So I go back to down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 is my first point. And then my next point is over 1, down 1. Graphed. So now I can find my slope. So from the leftmost point, I go up how many? How many did I go up? 3. And then to the right, how many? 3 over 3 is what? 1. So I know my slope is 1. Now let's just jump into that equation I told you. So which point do we want to use? The 2, -4, or the 1, -1? Either one will get you the right answer. But is multiplying 1s a whole lot easier than multiplying the bigger numbers? Yeah, so let's use the 1s. So my y goes first, -1 equals 1 times 1 plus b, right? Well, what's 1 times 1?
1.
Good. So then I subtract 1. -1 going further negative is actually a, nope, goes further negative to a -2. Now if you look on my graph, which ironically, strangely has a perfectly drawn line, that never happens to me, where did it cross at? -2. So we're good. So our equation is y equals 1x minus 2. Do I have to write the 1x, the 1 in front of the x? All right, so let's do your own number 1. Put this on a piece of paper. Our 2 points are 2, 3 and 4, 4. Grab a graph. You do have to grab a graph. Yeah.
Why don't you have the bigger ones? You know how you have big ones?
Oh, I'm out. I can make you more copies. I just can't do it right this second.
There's only 2.
Well, share them. You're not going to need. Give 1 to Sophia and Yoale can share, and you and Sean can share. No, but I mean, you're going to have to cut it. Just cut it. Cut it in half, because you're not going to need more than 4. And I will print some more.
Let me see that one. That's got songwriting on
Okay.
it. You can have that.
So let's graph these. My first point is at 2, 3. So I go over 2, up 3. My next point's at 4, 4. So I go over 4, up 4. That's a tiny little slope. Oh man, I'm on a roll today. So my slope is what? That's not right. Somebody needs to call me out when I'm wrong. Sophia, yell at me when I'm wrong. 2, 3 is here. 4, 4 is over there. See, we teachers are humans. There we go. Now my slope's right. So counting my slope, I go up how many? Over how many?
You have 1 over 2.
So my slope is 1/2. Very good. Now my graph is strangely beautiful, and you can tell what my y-intercept is, but I still want to practice the equation. So which of these two do we want to use for my x and y?
2 and 3.
You want to use the 2, 3? So this is x, this is y. So I'm going to say 3 equals 1/2 times 2 plus b. What's half of 2?
1.
Okay, subtract 1, subtract 1. I get b equals what? which my graph showed me that. So yay, confirmed. So then you just rewrite your equation, y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Any questions? Am I going too fast? Please tell me. I can slow down, no problem. That was on your own number 1. Make sure you graphed it. That counts as 2 points.
4 questions, right?
And label your graphs, put, you know, number 1 and circle it next to it. Yes, there should be 4. All right, number 2 on your own. We have -1, 2 and 1, -4. Grab a graph. Okay, to graph the first point, start at 0, 0. I go to the left, how many? And then I go up, how many? 2. And then on the second one, I go left or right first? On 1, -4, left or right first? Hello?
Wait, what happened?
On this point, I'm trying to graph it, left or right first?
No, right.
Right. I go to the right one, and then which way, up or down?
Go down.
Down, how many?
4.
Good. Oh my goodness, I am 4 for 4.
That's what's up.
I never have these good of days. All right, so my slope is, now which way am I going? Starting in the leftmost point, I'm going which way?
Going down.
Down. How many I go down?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1.
So I went down 6, so I put a negative, and then I went over how many?
6, 1.
Count
No,
it,
wait, yeah, 1.
count it again. 2.
Yeah, for that.
It's okay. So can I simplify -6 over 2?
Yes.
Negative what?
It'll be -3 over 1.
Which is just -3. Good job. All right. So now we have our slope. What x and y do we want to use?
The 1 over.
The
One.
-1, 2, yeah. So 2 and -1 goes here, plus 1. All right, so a -3 times a -1 gives me a
Positive.
+3. Oh, that's supposed to say plus b. So then I subtract 3. 2 minus 3 gives you a what? -1. Which, shockingly, my line does cross at -1. Rewrite my equation. Y equals, what's my slope?
-3.
And then my y-intercept? Very good, -1. So y equals -3x minus 1. Any questions? Not too bad, right? Sometimes this is going to feel like it's really long, but they're just small steps, and you just keep doing each step, and then you find yourself done. Don't let it overwhelm you. All right, example 2. Put this in your journals. They ask you the graph of which equation passes through the point 2, -1, and 4, -2, and then they give you 4 different equations. Instead of testing all 4 equations, I just actually solve for the correct equation, and then I go find it. It's way faster. So, can I find my slope now? Yes. You guys are not in the mood to answer me today. All right, so let's graph the first one. 2, -1. So starting at 0, 0, I go which way first?
Right.
Right 2, and then which way? Down 1. Okay, my next point. I go which way first?
The next one you go forward.
Uh-huh. To the right?
Down 2.
And down 2. Very good. Now, if you look at my graph, you can find the slope. I went which way first? I went down 1. And then over how many?
2.
So my slope is -1/2. Now, a quick glance tells me my y-intercept should be 0, but let's solve it. Solving for the y-intercept. All right, so we think it should be 0. Which point do we want to use? I say let's use 2, -1. So -1 equals, it's in your journal. It's in your journal.
So dumb. I did not trust you.
Because you jump on your Chromebook the minute I walk out of the room. Okay, so let's solve this. What's half of 2?
1.
It's just negative. So then to move it, I say +1. Shocking, -1 + 1 is 0.
Wow.
We didn't know that was coming. Yeah, we did. So y equals -1/2 x. Do I have to say +0?
No.
Is it wrong if I say +0?
No.
No, but let's not waste time and write it. So the cool thing is when they have a multiple choice question, now you just go find out which one it answers. So obviously our answer to this equation is which one?
Well, let me see. Is the y is A.
A. Ta-da! All right, guys, real life application. This is example 3. Okay, we have a 2-week-old kitten that weighs 9 ounces. 2 weeks later, it weighs 15 ounces. So the first thing kittens grow quickly. The first thing is to write an equation to represent the weight of the kitten per weeks after birth. And then B, how old is the kitten in the photo? So first of all, when you have a real life equation, try and find, because you know you're graphing, this is the whole lesson. So let's try and find 2 points. So the first sentence says, a 2-week-old kitten weighs 9 ounces. Does that sound like 2 different numbers?
Yeah.
So I could make a point 2, 9. Then it says 2 weeks later. So instead of being 2 weeks old, how old is he?
4.
So there's my X, 4 weeks. He weighs how much?
He weighs 15 ounces.
So do I have 2 points now?
Yes.
Beautiful, now we can graph.
How do you tell that, like, when you're coming up with these real life applications, which one do you determine as the Y, and like when you have these 2 points, which one do you determine as the Y?
Most of the time, whichever one is listed first, you can go with first. But as you see when it asks you the question, read with me. It says write an equation to represent the weight Y. So it's already telling you the weight is Y. So both of these are the weights, so they stand for Y. And then it says of the kitten X number of weeks. So then these are the weeks, so you can label that as X.
Oh, so that part where
In the question, a lot of times it'll label it for you.
Oh, so when it says weight and Y, I thought that was like in the equation.
It's just helping you write the points. That's all that is. Yeah. Good question. Very good question. All right, so let's graph these. The first point is 2, 9. So I go over 2, up 9, which I think is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Oh no, my next one's 4, 15. Okay, so you can't use this graph like I have it because it only goes to 10. So I'm going to have to change this to making each thing worth 2. So instead of going over 2, each line is worth 2. So I'm going over 1 and then up 4.5, right? Because that would be 9 right there in the middle. And then this one is over 4, which is over 2. And then up half of 15 would be 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. Yay. See, here's a great example of why I don't try and find the y-intercept off my graphs. It was terrible.
You're doing so good.
I was doing so good. It threw me. It's okay. So we have now we can find the slope off this because each one of these is worth 2. So I'm going to go up there's a half. 1, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went up 6. And then I go over 2, because remember it's worth, each line's worth 2. So 6 divided by 2 is what? 6 divided by 2 is what?
3.
3. So my slope is 3. Now let's go find what the actual y-intercept is mathematically. So I'm going to use that point. So I'm going to say 9 equals 3 times 2 plus b. Now I can solve for b. What's 3 times 2?
6.
So subtract 6, subtract 6. 9 minus 6 is? So this is supposed to cross at the 3 line, which is, it's close. It's about half. It's supposed to be halfway between those two. But that's why we solve it mathematically. So y equals 3x plus 3. So now that's the first part of this. This is A. It asks us to write the equation. Y equals 3x plus 3.
Is that
Yes. That's why we're going to finish this. The second thing it asks you, B, how old is the kitten in the photo?
I said
No, it
I
doesn't.
don't know. My bad. He's about 3 weeks.
You're tripping.
Yeah, I'm tripping.
What do we know about the kitten in the photo?
He's 22.5 ounces.
22.5 ounces. We have an equation we wrote, right?
Yeah.
Y equals 3x plus 3. What did the y and the x stand for? Do you remember? X stands for number of weeks he is. Y stands for how much he weighs. Okay? So if I know how much this kitty in the picture weighs, can I plug it in and solve for the other variable? Yeah. So we plug the weight in where y is, so we're going to say 22.5 equals 3x plus 3. Now we solve for x. What's my first step?
You subtract.
So what's 22.5 minus 3? Is that 19.5? Right? Yeah. And then we divide by 3. So what's 19.5 divided by 3? 6.5. So how old is this kitten? Yep. 6.5 weeks old.
Wait, hang on. 19 is 19.5. That's not divisible by 3.
Yeah, it is. 6.5. You're just going to come out with a decimal.
Ah.
And then I just, for word problem's sake, I changed it to 6.5 instead of 6.5 because it sounds better. You don't say, my kitten is 6.5 weeks old. No, you say, my kitten's 6.5 weeks old. It's not wrong. You could have said 6.5 weeks old. That's fine. It just sounds funny to me.
How did you get 6.5?
Yeah. How old is Anthony? Well, I am 11.7, 8. No.
Did you say I was 11?
No.
No, 0.11.
14 years and then 11 months and so many days. So I guessed. Because you said your birthday's Friday?
Yeah.
So it's almost, how old are you going to
Dude, I'm 13.
be? So you'll be 14. So you're 13 and 11 months and so many days.
Yes. That's cool.
Yeah, so I was close. Only,
See that when they didn't tell me.
how old are you? I am.
14.1.
There are people that do that when they ask you when you ask how old they are, and like you're,
Oh, how weird.
you would technically say I am 13 years 11 months. Okay.
Did I ask for months? Did I ask for months?
How many years old are you?
Just years. Right now, normal people would go, I'm almost 14. I'll be 14 on Friday.
I'd be 14.
Right. Because then that tells me you're just about to be 14.
Yeah.
Oh, we digress so quickly. All right. On your own number 3, put this on your paper. The graph of which equation in example 2 passes through the points -2, 4 and -1, 2. So let's just solve this. So let's graph these 2 points. I'm going to go to the left 2 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I go to the left 1, up 2. Can't draw my points today. It's because she made me get up. She threw me off. All right. So let's find out our slope. I go down how many over how many?
You go down 2 over 1.
So 2 over 1 can just be written as 2, right? Oh, but I forgot something. I went which way first? There we go, -2. All right, let's use this point. So I'm going to say 2 equals -2 times -1 plus b. What's -2 times -1? Positive 2. So -2, -2. So I get b equals what? 0. See, my graph sketching was terrible this time. So my equation is y equals -2x plus 0. So if you go back up and look at example 2, which of those A, B, C, or D did we solve for? Which one is it? Which one is y equals -2x? A, B, C, or D? Look on your books. A, B, C, or D? Which one says y equals -2x?
There's no...
Yep. Example 2, top of the page, the answer is C. So on your papers, write C for on your own number 3. Just because it makes my grading faster. That's all. All right, last one. Number 4 on your own, on your paper. A 3-week-old kitten weighs 12 ounces. Sounds like a point. 2 weeks later, so how many weeks is it now?
2 weeks later, so it would be 5 weeks.
5 weeks. It weighs 18 ounces. How old is the kitten when it weighs 27 ounces? So we want 27 eventually. All right, so let's find the slope. Because later on I need it. So I just wrote it down real quick. Okay, now I'm going to have to do these in 2s again. Yucky. Do you want me to show you the mathematical way to do this?
Yes. Easy. You don't have to graph it.
No, I'm going to show you how to not graph it. I want this to go away. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, so this is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. To solve this mathematically without having to graph it, you have to assign one point x and y1 and the other point x and y2. So I'm just going to say this is x and y1, x and y2. Here's your equation. So you're going to take one of the y's and subtract the other y, and then divide it by one of the x's divided by the other x. You just have to make sure whichever point you use first, you have to use first both top and bottom. So I labeled these my 2's, so I'm going to use these points first. So I'm going to say 18 minus 12, because that's my other y, divided by 5 minus 3. So what's 18 minus 12? What's 5 minus 3?
2.
What's 6 divided by 2?
It'd be 3, 1.
3. You just solve for your slope without having to graph it.
3.
So this is slope. Done. Yay! All right, so now let's solve for the y-intercept. So I'm going to say, let's use this point. 12 equals 3 times 3 plus b. What's 3 times 3? 9.
9.
Everybody's sleeping on me today. Minus 9. What's 12 minus 9?
3.
Very good. So now we have our equation. Y equals 3x. Well, that sounds familiar. Plus 3. That was the exact same equation we had last time. So there's your equation. The question they're asking is, how old is the kitten when it weighs 27 ounces? So which of these counts for ounces, the x or the y?
Y.
The y. So we're going to plug in 27 where that y is. So 27 equals 3x plus 3. Now we can solve for x, which will tell us how old the kitten is. Minus 3 is 24. Divided by 3. What's 24 divided by 3?
7. Wait, no. 8.
8.
It's 8.
So how old is this kitten?
8 weeks.
Make sure you wrote this down for, this is number 4. You've just done on your own numbers 1 through 4. Please make sure you get that turned in. You can turn that in separate, or you can keep going with your exercises 3 through 14 and 22 to 25.